a genuine faith and a living faith does have to be rooted in an encounter with someone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important for our faith, is the continual insistence that we do not believe something, we believe someone. When I looked at this episode, I was thinking that it has the theme of faith, but then I started kind of talking about faith in general. But that's not quite, I feel like, what the readings are about. They're about faith having to do with time, something in the future, stepping out into the unknown. So I guess you know, from Hebrews 11, you get a definition of faith that you could describe as in general, but it's not. I started getting into the weeds about evidence and certainty and like who reveals, and it was getting a little too much.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, okay. So let me posit this to you, and then you tell me what you think about this, and we can springboard off of this regarding faith. Okay. So the first reading, the line from Wisdom, the night of the Passover was known beforehand to our fathers, that with sure knowledge of the oaths in which they put their faith, they might have courage. So there's this notion that something was revealed to them beforehand. So there's a type of like surety of their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like pin that one. Then we go to Hebrews. Brothers and sisters, faith is the realization of what is hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So that seems different.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, by faith, Abraham obeyed because when he was called out to go to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance, he went out not knowing where he was to go. So that seems different than wisdom from the first reading of, you know, knowing beforehand. Then we go to the gospel, where Christ is saying, you must be prepared for an hour that you do not expect the Son of Man will come. And then Peter is asking, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like he's kind of prodding, being like, so are you going to like tell us in secret the real time that you're coming? And then Christ responds with the parable of the, you know, the servant who knows when his master is coming and says, my master is delayed in coming, and begins to beat the maidservants and the men servants to eat and drink and get drunk. And then the servant's master comes at an unexpected hour. So I don't know. I feel like Peter is saying like if I was Peter asking that question and then Jesus responded that way, I would be like, so is that a yes or no?
Yeah.
So, but it seems like he's almost questioning his question.
Uh-huh.
He's being like, you're actually framing the question the wrong way. Like, you're not supposed to think about it of a secret knowledge as opposed to an always readiness for the Son of Man to come. And that's a better way of being. So that opens the question of like, so then what are all these readings trying to get to as to the nature of faith, and how do we work all that out? So that's what I'm throwing to you.
Right. Well, the answer to Peter is kind of classic tertia quid for Jesus. It's like, is it yes or no? Like who's married to this woman? You know, in the resurrection of the dead and all that. And it's not yes or no. It's here's a third way. Who is the prudent and faithful servant? Mm-hmm. You know, so it's not is this for you or for everybody? It's just whoever is the prudent and faithful one will act in this way. And I think for this parable, I'll get into the other ones, but for this parable, Jesus is saying that faith actually has told you that the master is coming back. You know that much. You just don't know when, but you know he is coming back. So the fact that you said, oh, he's delayed, let me enjoy myself, let me kind of indulge in hedonism. It's like, well, he was coming back. You knew that much. Like, at least that was revealed to you. Mm-hmm. So this is why you will be severely beaten, is, you know, you didn't have the watchfulness, you know, the prudence to wait, I guess, or because I just noticed that it does have the faithful servant and then the unfaithful servant. So the one who didn't have the foresight to know that the master would return just perhaps when he didn't expect it.
Yeah,
But-
it's like the steward or the servant who walks in faith versus the one who doesn't. Like both of them maybe know that the master's coming back, and so that's irrelevant to the meta question of like, well, then how are they being in the world? Like their time in the now is different, even though if they both have the same amount of information.
Mm-hmm. I think the readings show a strange tension between the idea that faith is knowledge, but it also isn't knowledge. Yep. And faith is revealed to you in the first reading that the night of the Passover was known before to our fathers with sure knowledge. So faith imparts sure knowledge, but yet that sure knowledge is still shrouded in mystery.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Gregory of Nyssa calls it the luminous darkness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like what a contradiction.
Yeah. And this, again, St. John of the Cross, it brings certitude, but not clarity. Mm-hmm. So you do know that the master's coming back, but yet at an unknown hour. You can be sure that he's coming back. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the imprudent and unfaithful servant is you knew he was coming back. Why did you act this way? Right. Like, as though a delay is enough to say, well, he's not coming back. It's like, well, he is. Uh-huh. Just not at this moment.
Yeah, that was something I mentioned in the notes about like the two ways to see time as like either chronological, which is kind of like Ian McGilchrist's left hemispheric way of thinking, or using the right hemisphere and seeing time as like always in the now, like happening to you as opposed to chronological. That seemed related in that if you think that the master's coming at a time later, as in not now, then that way of thinking makes you feel like you can manipulate things in the interim, as opposed to like there's an eternal present realization in the present that the master will come. And that's always relevant to you now in time. That's like a better starting point to how you're going to behave because both are true though. You know what I'm saying? Like the master is not here yet. And so it's not like you can just neglect that aspect of reality, but the like process by which you start to perceive the world begins in the like, well, he's coming and that should be a thing that's present to me now. And that dictates my behavior from there.
Yeah. This reminds me of last week's reading actually about the rich fool.
Yeah.
Because he says, okay, I've, amassed all this wealth. I can rest easy. But then God says, tonight, I want your soul tonight. So he said, it's that, well, I have time. He said things are chronological, like, it's not happening yet. Yep. So I'm good. Uh-huh. And it's like, but it could happen any minute. It's like that's the one who is faithless is the one that does not keep attention to the fact that it could happen now, even if it's not apparent. I think that's all throughout wisdom literature and in the Psalms. Again, it appears as though God doesn't punish the wicked. Mm-hmm. It's like I sin or the wicked sin and nothing immediately happens. So does God really pay attention? Right. And so this is the imprudent servant is, well, he's not here right now. Uh-huh. So maybe I can get away with it now.
Right. Which is the wrong frame. Like it's like asking how much sin can I get away with before I have to repent? Mm-hmm. It's like that's just like the wrong way to see the world. Like if you behave that way in the world, it comes back to bite you. And that's what I feel like it seems like that's what Jesus is getting at with Peter when he's like, so is this for everybody or,
mm-hmm.
like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's sure. It's like, okay, so who you're saying, gird up your loins, the master will return at a certain time. It's like, okay, so who needs to be vigilant? Right. Well, blessed are those servants whom the master finds vigilant at his arrival. It's like, okay, so are we the vigilant ones? Right. Are they the vigilant ones? Are you going to, are you going to give us a heads up? Uh-huh. And Jesus' answer seems to be no. Right. I get, but one, it's for everybody. And then two, no, you're not going to get a heads up. The faithful servant is going to be the one who is waiting still.
And then the next question in my mind comes up of like, well, then is that supposed to be a kind of indication of a state of fear that we're always in? I think yes and no. Because I think that you could also say the same thing of love, in that, like, if I was like, well, how much can I get away with, hiding certain things from my wife before she finds out? It's like, just wrong frame. It doesn't mean that you should fear your wife's judgment, but you should love your wife, where that you don't want to behave that way, even though chronologically I'm not currently with my wife and I could get away with things right now. But that's irrelevant to the way I've thought first of that, like, my love for her is first, and that is a now thing, versus the chronological separation in time of us being together. I don't know. Yeah, it just seems like you can either have faith driven by that fear of judgment constantly, which is a real thing, or maybe it's a both and. And then on the other hand, you have love, where it's like, if you truly loved God, then you wouldn't be asking how much could I get away with, because that's just the wrong frame. And that's the kind of faith that should inform you at all times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, both and definitely, because judgment's a real thing.
Right.
Like the proper fear is due.
Right. Well, I think perhaps this goes to the second reading from Hebrews 11. Faith is a realization of what is hoped for and evidence of things not seen. I've read like 20 different definitions or translations of Hebrews. So, at first I thought realization was a bad translation, because the Greek word is more substance, hypostasis, which that's the Greek, and then we would translate it in the Latin as substance. But then I thought that realization here is not realization in that you wake up and you think, you realize, oh, we don't have eggs. It's to realize, to make real.
That's right.
It's the same thing as to actualize. So it's to bring into being. Faith brings into being what is hoped for. So it makes present, like you're saying, a future reality.
Yeah.
So again, it's that now element that you're talking about, and it's not a pure fear thing of like judgment is going to come, but it's more of, in a sense, keeping it before your eyes at all times in a way that I think is actually just in accordance with reality. It's like judgment will happen. Yeah. And this isn't like a thing of fear or guilt. It's just, if this is true in a reality, I should keep this before my mind. Like I said, this is similar to a marriage. It's like, it's not, I'm fearing my wife. It's just, there's a reality that when I try to twist twist things to get my own way, there's a present consequence.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
When I was thinking about all this, of course, you have Ratzinger's introduction to Christianity that we read together a while back, and it's like almost all about faith. That, like, the whole book. It's and I think his story that he cites in the beginning from Kierkegaard is exactly right. It's like when you talk about faith in the modern world, you feel a little bit like a clown. It's like you don't. There's something sort of embarrassing about it, because so many people don't think in the same terminology. He said, or his other analogy is, you feel like some ancient person rising from a sarcophagus, which is kind of funny. So, I think with that in mind, I kind of wanted to start, I guess we've already started, but, start, a real kind of diving into discussion with that in mind, that, let's be clowns and fools,
yes,
right, for Christ. And I think part of the issue with belief, just even the word or to believe, is it's often associated with maybe opinion, that you could kind of switch them out. Like, I believe this to be the case until further
evidence.
Until further evidence. I believe that you should prioritize protein and fats. It's like, but I'm open
right.
to being wrong. So it has like a reservation until further notice, this is what I believe. So we, even when we talk about like to make believe and things like that. But Joseph Pieper points out that this is actually an improper use of the word. So, improper doesn't necessarily mean vague or arbitrary, but it's just the proper sense of the word is not applied to that word. So he says that you can recognize this by one sign. You can recognize when a word is used improperly. And he says it's when that word could be exchanged for another without altering the meaning of the sentence. So you could use the word believe and switch it out with think or assume or consider probable. Right. But for us, what we're trying to, I think what we're going to get into is that faith is certain, actually. And it's not, I have the opinion of, which again is not the modern notion of, of faith, I think, or of belief.
Right. Like if you were to swap out, like, I believe in God with I consider probable God. It's like, that's not what we mean by that.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. It goes to our discussion about, this sure knowledge, the idea that we know that Christ is going to return, even if we don't know the time. You're certain of that, even if it doesn't give you complete clarity about the future. Right. You are still certain that this thing will happen. Mm-hmm. So I am certain that God exists, even if that doesn't bring me clarity. Right. And I know exactly what that means all the time, or I know the nature of God perfectly or existent. It's not that element. It's in the assent that God exists is the certainty.
So to I don't know if you're going to get to this point later, but thinking on certainty and knowledge, right? Like we're going to open up the can of worms on epistemology. Ultimately, faith is a theological virtue. And so this certainty that we have is not the same type of certainty as scientific certainty. Like we're talking about a different epistemological fact that's actually theological that we have, but then still gives us a certainty, but it's a difference in kind than just scientific knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. It because faith has its object in God, and God is the revealer of this. It's the most certain knowledge you can have, but it's of a different kind.
Right. It's paradoxically a luminous darkness.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds.
Clownish.
This is the clownish. It sounds like such a cop out. It's like, well, no, it's actually super certain, and I like it's even more certain than gravity or something. Right, it's like, oh, sure, But a lot of this is presupposed in does God actually communicate? Does he speak? And can man listen?
Right.
And if you don't grant that premise, then it's silly. But if you do believe that, if you do grant that premise, then there could be nothing more certain. But you have to kind of
make that leap.
Yeah, exactly. You have to make that leap of faith that God does in fact reveal, and the assent to that is much greater than any other form of human testimony. Right. The testimony of God is greater than human testimony. Thomas says that in the assent of faith there's something perfect and imperfect about it. And the perfect part of it is that one is assenting to reveal truths. Again, that certainty that God reveals these. But the imperfectness, he says, comes from the mental unrest that results, which is kind of interesting. So it's that imperfect part that I think we often focus on as undermining the perfect part, as a certain part. And it's like, well, the certainty doesn't come from simply the act of faith, but in the object of the one who reveals it. So it's not always the secondary facts, but the primary assent to the prima veritas, the first truth, as scholastics would say. Mircea Eliade says that the category of faith in his mind, he argues, is introduced by Abraham, who is kind of the main figure of our second reading. Hebrews 11, when you expand it out, goes through like all the heroes of faith. So it's not just Abraham, it's Noah, it's Moses, Sarah, Abraham's wife is mentioned. But in our particular reading, it really just focuses on Abraham. He says that kind of before the sacrifice of Isaac, the sacrifice of the firstborn, he said, could be kind of seen as just like an archaic religious expression. The sacrifice of the firstborn is well attested to in other cultures, but it was more ritualistic. But for Abraham, this was considered an act of faith and not necessarily an act of a ritual. That it was Abraham's faith in the one who commanded it, as opposed to perhaps a reenactment of a ritual. And that introduces in Eliade's mind something that is new and different than archaic religions of the time. And I think when we consider religions of the past, because we've all been Christian for so long, for the last 2,000 years, we think that religions of the past act kind of how they act now, that you had belief in these different rituals and gods. But I do think that Christianity introduces something different, this act of faith, as opposed to a reenactment of, I guess, archetypal patterns and rituals. This certitude that is found is also something new. I think that Abraham, as our second reading says, that Abraham found God trustworthy. So it's really, again, in the certitude and the reliability of faith is found not simply in that he was asked to sacrifice Isaac, but actually that he believed in God. And he found God to be trustworthy, and that in some mysterious way, as the reading also says at the end, Isaac would be given back to him. Right. Somehow, in some way. So it wasn't just simply an act of kind of blind faith. I think is sometimes how Hebrews, or the sacrifice of Isaac, is interpreted. It's just, God asks sometimes for the absurd, and you just and you just have to do it. Right. I think it's more, as the reading says, he reasoned that God was able to raise the dead, and he would receive Isaac back somehow in some way. Right. So even there is a little bit of the interaction of our intellect and faith. It's not just...
Yeah, it seems like that there's a certitude there, but not a clarity.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. It's like God will bring him back. I'm just not sure how. Right. Like, I know he can raise the dead. And I think that's maybe what he'll do for me after I sacrifice my son. But we'll see.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of interesting. You can see it in the English, but the Greek really drives home the point that Abraham actually does sacrifice Isaac. Like, he completes the act of sacrifice. But clearly he doesn't kill him. So it does carry this, it seems to carry this meaning that the sacrifice of Isaac wasn't about his death. It was about placing one's ultimate faith in God. And that's the sacrifice.
That's very interesting as it relates to the chronological time thing of he acted in the now as if his son was sacrificed. Like, he just placed his faith in God and already mentally has separated himself from his son as an act of sacrifice. So that act was already done.
Yeah.
And it's not about the chronological, did you stab the boy? It's about the mental separation and leap of faith towards God that actually happened.
Right. He was willing and clearly took all the steps necessary that showed God, okay, you have in fact, in kind of a spiritual way or mystical way, sacrificed your son. Yeah. He said, you've created that separation now. And therefore you've completed the sacrifice of faith. Right. even if it didn't happen physically. That's not the point. The point was you were willing to go that far to do it. The classic definition we have here is, we talked about it a little before, but I think it's worth like really piecing out the faith is the realization of what is hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. I think that's really worth taking apart. It's such a like compact sentence, and in the Greek, it's like crazy, to work out. But it has this. It certainly carries the notion that faith is proof of something, or it's a conviction of something. So it's not a subjective feeling, but faith has this connotation of proof of a matter kind of thing. So faith is thus a kind of proof. So faith is proof, you could say, of what is hoped for, or things not seen, which is, to me, I've been really trying to work this out. It's, by the act of faith that I have in God and the certitude of what he has revealed, my faith is proof that there is like a heavenly realm. But that seems, again, because of the objective nature of faith, and then also this subjective nature. It's like, well, just because you believe something to be the case doesn't make it actually true. But there is something here that they're trying to say is like, when you have faith, you bring that which you hope for into being. So again, with Abraham, he had faith that Isaac would be brought back from the dead. And in fact, he brought that into being, and Isaac was mystically brought back from the dead. He is alive at the end. The other word we talked about, hypostasis, is kind of a strange word. In the noun, it means to stand under, and then in the verb form, it's to support or to settle. So faith supports reality in a sense. So it's this the idea that the substance of reality is what is invisible and what's transcendent, and not just in the things that are present and visible. I think this goes back to your points about the now and the visible. It's like, well, the master is not here presently and visibly, so therefore I can get away with these things, as opposed to remembering that the master is away and not visible, but he is coming back.
Right. That would make you unfaithful, as in like you are not practicing faith to be able to see the world and realize that reality. Yeah, I think, some of the complication of this just comes from like Pieper's point of like these words not being used the right way, particularly in our language. But I feel like it's helpful a little bit in that they may provide like a springboard into understanding what faith is as a theological virtue, but at lower levels. So, for example, like if I have, again, like let's use the marriage example. I hope that my wife and I have a strong relationship and that we love each other until we die. Like that is something I hope that becomes real. Me having faith in that means that becomes realized in my life. And faith is kind of like the light which shines on my reality through that thing that I'm hoping for, right? So like me actualizing a relationship with my wife that is vibrant and flourishing is an act of faith, right? And so I'm realizing that thing I'm hoping for, and that's how I'm being in the world. And so it's proof that it's happening. It's proof that it's this thing I can't see yet. I don't know if like at the end of the concluding sequential moments of our life, we can look back and say, yep, that was a fruitful marriage. But I'm trying to realize that in the present because that's what I'm hoping for. And so that is like my eyes of faith into my day to day, as opposed to like, well, let me see how much I can get away with now in secret. And then when we're together, I'll, make sure that we're happy and whatever. That's unfaithful. That's being unfaithful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a great analogy because one, it does help us understand what we mean by faith, I think, in a different sense, because I think faith is not just one act. Like you said, it's like a series of acts.
Yeah, it's a state of being.
And it's a state of being. So when you say you're unfaithful, it's not simply, well, in the context of God, it's like, well, you don't go to church or you don't believe these things. It's actually your state of being is one of which is unfaithful to God. Like you don't make present
right.
his reality.
You don't realize these things that you're hoping for, and
right.
therefore you don't have faith.
Right. So it's like, what is a living faith?
Right.
That's something, I think about a lot, because a lot of people, they'll make that distinction between, dead faith, living faith. And it's like, okay, what makes someone faithful? What makes it living? And I think it's exactly what you said. Living faith is continuous acts. It's not just one big, I believe in God and that's it.
Right.
It's how do you realize, actualize, bring into being your faith day to day?
And then the question is like, well, how many? It's like, wrong frame, buddy.
Yeah.
Like this again, that's like not the way to frame this picture. Like if it was from love or even the fear of judgment, like that's an internal now that you have to live in. And it's not, as soon as you break that frame and reconceptualize it, like, well, is it 6 times that I'd be faithful and then I can like stop being faithful? It's like, no.
Right. Well, it's the faithful and prudent servant who is vigilant.
Right.
So it's all the time until the master returns.
Yeah.
And then faith ceases, because what is hoped for, what is not manifest is made manifest. But until then, how long are you faithful for? Every day. Yeah. It's just a consistent series of acts that bring into being your faith. And I think that's part of, we talk about sanctity or sainthood. It's like saints are people who realize their faith every day. It's like, this is what I believe, and I'm going to act on it. I'm going to bring that which I believe into being now, and not just keep it theoretical. And Ratzinger says, like, the greatest proofs for our faith that we have are the saints. It's because faith is something that is received, and you need, fundamentally testimony. It's like, okay, well, who has the greatest testimony? The saints. Those who have done exactly as you said, each day brought faith into being.
Right. They become exemplars for us to then continue to hope for that possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's obviously what Hebrews 11 is getting into with all, the litany of the other examples of faith. It's you are to live as Abraham lived. He journeyed out to a place that he didn't know. He lived as a stranger. He offered up his son. You are to do the same. To offer up this kind of pilgrimage imagery is now put into your own interior self, and you are to offer your own Isaac in hopes of receiving it back, but in a way maybe that you don't understand or you don't know. That's also is what Christ says to Peter. Peter also, he asks the same thing. It's always Peter. Yeah. He says, what about us who have given up family and homes and stuff like that? And Christ says, you will receive it back 100-fold in this life and in the next. So it's the same thing here. It's like what your Isaac that you offer, you will be given back. To what extent? Or unclear, but it will happen. That's the act of faith that God is asking of Abraham and of us. So Hebrews, its basic kind of thrust here is that faith is a recognition that reality is not found in the phenomenal world, in the kind of the world of senses or the present, and that the certainty of it's the certainty of a transcendent world and future. So faith is not found here, and the certainty that it brings is that there is a future. So since faith is the knowledge that the essential reality is not present, the present reality, that gives man and Abraham the kind of quality of a stranger to the world. So it's somebody who kind of yearns for a different homeland, whose possession is of a heavenly existence. So it gives you, again, the imagery of pilgrimage, which in the greater context of Hebrews, I think works with the idea that Christ is the archegos, the pathfinder, the pioneer of faith, the one who kind of cuts the path, and then you follow in it, which I think connects to our gospel as well, that the master goes out to a wedding feast and comes back. So this idea that Christ leaves, he cuts a path, but then comes back to lead us on that path back to heaven. So the man of faith, the person of faith, is one who is willing to live as a stranger because this world is not it. It's not your home. And I think in the gospel, the imprudent servant is one who gets comfortable, I guess, in a sense. It's like the rich fool in last week's gospel. I have everything I need. Let's just enjoy it. And then his soul is asked of him. Right. And then this week's gospel, well, the master doesn't seem to be here, so I can enjoy my life presently. It's like, well, you're not living as a stranger anymore. So that's right. Faith has this quality, again, of pilgrimage and of yearning for a better future. And in that yearning, though, is realized in the day-to-day. Right.
Actualizing the yearning. Right. Because it seems like the yearning is essentially what hope is, right? And that hope is this future thing that, again, is not the same way we talk about hope. Like, I hope that it doesn't rain today. It's like, I hope for unity with God at the end of all things. It's like, that's a theological thing that we receive, and then is actualized through faith that informs our vision. And then, like we were discerning before, like, is it love or fear that's supposed to animate this movement, this traveling through the sojourn? That's what the theological virtue of love is. So you have faith, hope, and love that is like the sight to see and realize the thing you're hoping for, and you're moved forward through that through love. It's like, so once faith and hope are completed on this journey, then we then rest in love. And to rest means that ultimate rest. And then anything less than that would be like these servants who, like, well, my master's not here, so I'm going to rest and drink and be merry. And that's losing hope and losing faith in the now.
I wish maybe we should just do a study on Hebrews, because I love the letter to Hebrews. But one of the passages in Hebrews is about striving to enter into God's rest. And that's, of course, the eschatological rest, right, not the rest that you just described. Yeah. This earthly rest, right, that is actually faithless and despairing, right, as opposed to faithful and a movement in hope towards the future.
Right.
It's a striving for the ultimate rest. Right. So yeah, I guess faith and hope are these like kind of pilgrim virtues. I mean, so is love.
Yeah.
But faith is the assent to things that not seen, and hope is your will towards the good, but the good as rationally conceived, because it's your will, and love kind of binds them, as St. Paul will say, binds them together and gives them form, right, to move forward. But in the end, those two, faith and hope, are dissolved, because the faith will be dissolved because what was invisible is made visible and then dissolved, and then hope, well, once you possess that which you hope for,
right,
yeah. And then love is a unitive kind of virtue, like you want to be united, and once you're united with the love, then
you're good.
Yeah, you're good. I mean, that will stay, but right. But yeah, that's the movement. Yeah. So it is really, faith really is this orientation towards an invisible reality, which again is the clownish reality of it. It's like no, I have faith. You just can't see it. Right. Anyway, I wanted to make another point. You said about kind of faith and hope, and in the analogy of marriage, is it's really true. We use these words so improperly, because you talk about having faith in your marriage too. It's like, well, it doesn't mean we'll just see what happens.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I'm open to the option,
Yes.
or like I'm of the opinion that things will work out. But if they don't, if there's evidence. And, but then also B, it's like you have to realize that faith in those daily acts.
Right.
So it's not just a hoping for the best.
Yeah.
It's like you actually have
or
to do
mathematical like computation.
Yeah.
Like, I put it on a chart and it seems like it's going to statistically work out for us. It's like, okay.
Right. It can't be a utility like that.
Yeah.
That's faith is not. In fact, faith is not in what is calculable and what you can quantify.
Right.
It's actually a movement towards a future that is unknown, but can in some ways be grasped or seen in your very act of faith.
Right. Yeah, and then it's the love for each other that will give you the animating principle to be able to traverse day to day and try to hope for that continually and actualize that. And so, like, as it relates to the theological virtues, it's like if our faith in God and the transcendent, that is the subject of our faith, and the hope is eschatological, outside of this world, what is going to be able to bind that together and give us the animating principle to move in that way day in and day out? It has to be the life of God within us, right? It has to be charity. It has to be a theological love between God that is given to us that is going to be able to compel us. Because again, it's not going to come from us, so it has to be something granted. That's why these are gifts.
Right. Faith is something that has to be received. As St. Paul says, faith comes through hearing. You can't give it to yourself.
Right.
It has to be something that I hear and that I receive both intellectually, and also in my will. I think that's something that maybe Peterson's tried to bring a little bit more to the forefront is the existential quality of faith, perhaps. That it's not simply the reception of facts and knowledge, but that there's something about like the core of my being that has to orient itself towards what I've received.
Yep, that's right.
And part of that core is love, so it can't just be even the acceptance of truth, because I think that, why people don't accept the faith is, I think it's a mystery, like ultimately, because it seems as though some people have all the facts and they don't accept it, or people have nothing and yet they accept it. So the strangeness of that. But I think the peculiar nature of faith is that one can think that what has been revealed is true, but also not make an act of the will.
Right.
One can actually, in fact, not existentially move themselves towards that. And perhaps the issue is, and in the end of the day, love.
That's right.
Well, I think it was in the Exodus seminar that Peterson had, where Peterson he read something and he was like, "This is like terrifying," and Bishop Barron was like, "No, it's like it's about love," or something like that. Right. And I was like, "This is like you have a perfect dichotomy here."
Yep.
It's like, because it is about like they're both kind of right. Like
that's what we've been talking about. Of like the master's coming. Is that supposed to be this terrifying judgment, or is there another way to see it?
It's like it is kind of both. Like it is a terrifying reality. Peterson's not wrong, but also Bishop Barron's right. It's like, but there is this aspect of love though, that is supposed to, I don't know a better way to say it, but like disarm wrath. It's the prodigal son. That the Father's love is actually to assent to God in love is actually to disarm like this experience of guilt and wrath and judgment and everything like that. Not that it won't happen. It's just that's not the primary motive to be faithful. Do you want to say something? Sorry.
No, I was going to go on a big tangent.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about in Dante's Paradise, where it's Peter, James, and John question Dante on faith, hope, and love as he's ascending up through paradise. I've been thinking about that aspect, and then the fact that Peter, James, and John are like oddly in very very like in different places in the Bible, in these like secret places where like Jesus in the Transfiguration takes Peter, James, and John up, and then when he goes to heal who's one of the daughters, she dies, and he brings her back to life. He takes Peter, James, and John with him. There's like this tripartite thing going on with them that's related. Seems like it's related to being entered into the mysteries of faith, hope, and love being required to be able to perceive a reality that's infinitely mysterious. And it's like you have to receive those things first before before this is revealed to you, and then it makes sense. Like even in the Rosary, where it's like you say the first 3 Hail Marys for faith, hope, and love, and then you go through the mysteries of the Rosary. It's like this girding on the eyes of faith, in which you realize that which is hoped for, which is motivated through love, and then you can perceive these mysteries as making sense to you and things to meditate on and inform your life and bring you to holiness. But it's like that's so primary before you start to go into these things.
I think there's something really to that it's in the end, these 3 virtues are called theological because their object is in God, and it's really the mysteries are given only to those who open themselves or give themselves to them. You know, the one who like truly sees reality, the Christian life is truly about the one who is willing to live on faith, hope, and love. That's right. And I think it's true that these mysteries can't really be understood apart from those virtues. They can kind of be examined abstractly, but and perhaps even scientifically, in a broad sense of that word. But to truly penetrate the mysteries and to integrate them, it can only happen through the theological virtues.
Right. Even Peterson's project, what he's been doing of bringing that kind of psychological aspect to a lot of these things, or somebody who converts to the faith because they were convinced by arguments, even that is just a like getting up to the border. Mm-hmm. So like to say that like, somebody presented John 6 to me and that's why I converted to Catholicism is maybe true again chronologically, but it's like what happened is that you were brought to the edge and convinced to make the leap of faith. Mm-hmm. Like that's not faith of being like, I'm convinced. You're still receiving something ultimately. And so like the arguments are good, and the Peterson's whole project, that whole thing of like psychologizing all of these mysteries get you to a certain level, but at the edge of it you still need to make a receptive leap. I think that's exactly it. And if you really kind of dig deep in your own experience of conversion or coming to faith or making that leap, there are perhaps steps that brought you there. Perhaps reading did help you. Perhaps understanding the arguments for the existence of God did help you. But you're right. The ultimate thing, if you really examine it, is a leap. Yeah. Because what it takes, what faith truly is a reception of someone else's testimony, the testimony of God, and that doesn't come about through argumentation. And again, it's not just your intellect that's involved, it's also your will. Right. That has to make a choice. That's right. To accept. Again, the will is the intellectual appetite. So it wills the good that has been intellectually received. So you're right. Like perhaps someone explains John 6 to you, and you grasp it, you get it, you accept it as true. Yeah. But then that leap of faith is the will. Right. Well, because you think about what's going to proceed then is that you're making a decision to live in a certain way, to realize things hoped for. And so what are you going to do? Like you're going to just constantly remind yourself of the arguments, or is there a better way to live? Like is there I don't know, an easier way to be than to just constantly having to like reconvince yourself like mathematically that these things are true, and you keep making that a sentence. Like that's not actually how those things function. So there's something else pushing you and giving you sight and shedding light on your world that's different than the arguments that got you to that point.
Yeah, I think that a genuine faith and a living faith does have to be rooted in an encounter with someone. Mm-hmm. I think that's important for our faith, is the continual insistence that we do not believe something, we believe someone. Right. So that when you're right, when you fall back on your faith, when you're recalling times that you need to be faithful, it's not simply a philosophical understanding that God exists, but that someone exists. And you have hopefully had a life-changing encounter with that person, and that you put your faith in that person. Really the dogmas and the teachings and the content of faith is really secondary. If you really parse it out and you really dig deep and kind of dissect it, what you primarily believe is the person who reveals, and then secondarily what they reveal. Right. When you put your faith in that person, and then by analogy, you put your faith in dogmas. I think this is where, in a weird twist, someone who's religious but not spiritual, you put your faith in dogma,
right,
and not in the one who reveals it. And that's when the order gets all kind of messed up. Carl Jung really insisted that religious experience was like the most fundamental experience for someone, that belief could not be substituted for unless one had this experience. In fact, faith and any sort of outward religion was unimportant to him unless you had this. Like you really couldn't say you had faith until you had this numinous experience. He gets that from Rudolf Otto, the idea of the holy. But this encounter that is supra rational, and that's what you fall back on. Like you said, it's as someone has revealed themselves, and that's what I place my trust in. And that's the active faith of Abraham.
Yeah,
is not just an act of the absurd, but the act of faith because one who I deem to be in relationship with and trustworthy has asked this of me.